This episode of I Am Salt Lake Podcast is proudly sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, 9 to 7, and Sunday, 12 to 5. Their newest location is located at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. They also have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and up in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. No appointment is necessary. Just show up, get yourself a haircut. Maybe you have a last-minute date or a job interview. Jed's Barbershop is the place for you. Head on over to their website at jedsbarbershop.com for more information.
Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people, making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake Podcast.
It's hard to believe 1 week ago, Chrissy, you gave birth to the little baby that you're holding in your arms right now.
Yeah, and she's so much cuter out than in.
She really is. I know a lot of people have seen photos of our little baby, Lucy. We posted them on Facebook and Instagram, and you guys have all seen it 1 week ago today. Lucy Christina was born September 10th, 10:49 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually the first time we brought her, though, to our I Am Salt Lake podcast studio here. And but if you want to listen to the recap of our story, go check out our other podcast, Mom and the New Dad, episode 20. We actually took our podcast gear right to the hospital, did a recording right there so you can kind of hear our story. It was about 30 hours after you gave birth. I'm not sure exactly what time it was, but it was a fascinating story. We're going to put the link for that up at iamsaltlake.com/295.
Yeah, it was really fun to have something to do in the hospital.
It does get kind of boring in there.
It does. Yep.
We're going to get into that. So you're going to want to listen to that after you're done listening to this episode. But let's welcome everybody out today to episode 295. My name's Chris Hollifield.
And my name's Chrissy Hollifield.
Today on the podcast, we sit down with local Salt Lake City sex therapist Braxton Dutson. We're going to find out his story, what got him interested in becoming a sex therapist, and all the fun that comes along with being a sex therapist here in Utah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I learned so much from him. Fascinating.
I really didn't know a lot of the stuff, especially in our schools and stuff, which I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but we got into that here on the podcast. I mean, a lot of stuff just blew me away.
Yeah. It's really, he just gives a whole different perspective than most people get.
And I really do. I want to have a part 2, part 3 with Braxton. We're going to get into that though. Hey, from time to time, I know we run into those events where we need a photographer. Whether we have a family get-together, you're a comedian, you need headshots, or if you're like us, we needed a wedding photographer, and now we need a baby photographer. We invite you to check out the photography of local photographer Amanda DeWolf. She took all of our wedding pictures, and I know I couldn't be more happy with how they came out.
I love to just go back and look at them all the time.
Oh my gosh, you don't really put a lot of thought. I didn't really put a lot of thought into wedding pictures.
Well, we weren't even going to have them.
Yeah.
She did an amazing job.
She really did. AmandaKmemories.com is where you can get in touch with her. Again, that's Amanda, K-A-Y, memories.com. All right, let's jump into that conversation that we had with local Salt Lake City sex therapist Braxton Dutson when he came over to our office, shared his story. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy. So if you had less than 30 seconds to tell me about yourself, what would you say? Like, how would you introduce yourself? Is there kind of a spiel?
Man, and it's one I've been practicing for a little bit, but then it's like every time it needs to come up, I always forget what it is. But essentially in 30 seconds, I'm Braxton Dutson. I'm a sex therapist here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I got my bachelor's of social work here at the University of Utah, and then got my master's in social work. Just got my full license, so I'm an LCSW now. And I work a lot with teens, adults, and couples dealing with out-of-control sexual behaviors or unsatisfactory sex lives, whether they're dealing with pain or needing some support in understanding more about sex.
That blows my mind because I'm a mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whenever my kids kind of want to talk about it, I'm just like,
Do your
I'm
kids
uncomfortable. This is not okay.
Do they come to you, Chrissy, and say, "Mom, I want to talk about sex"? I mean,
Well,
let's be honest here.
We've beat around the bush, like we
Really?
kind of talk about it. Or, I think my talk with my 13-year-old was, so you know how babies are made, right? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, good. And that was that. Like,
And that's
I
a
don't
lot
wanna,
of the talks that people have.
Is
it's
it?
just, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
how do you really do that? And because I think we're worried about traumatizing them, It's like,
Is that what it? So I remember when I was about 13, 14 years old, there was a friend of mine. His mom gave him a porno video, and I think I've
That's
told
one
you
way to
about
learn.
this. I think
Yeah.
I've told you. She was like, "Here, I want you to learn how it's done," and I don't know if that's really the best way to do
kind
it.
of-
I
maybe.
highly discourage parents from showing pornography to their kids to teach about sex, mostly because it'd be like us saying, all right, we got driver's ed going. Okay, we got James Bond first day, Fast and Furious 1 through 7, and we're going to
Yeah.
teach you guys how to drive a car.
yeah.
And the kids are like, oh, yeah, sweet. This is what sex is going to be like, or this is how it's going to be like to drive a car. And
Sex is nothing like a porno video.
no,
No, it's not. Because if you try to move in those ways, it just doesn't work.
they're professionals for adult entertainment. And the thing
Yeah.
that we run into is that they don't show the unsexy parts of sex. So they don't show the communication of like, what are we going to do during this? Let's
Yeah.
lube up. Let's do this. Are you okay with this? I'm not okay with that. Okay, well, I'm going to do this and we're going to have this scene. And they don't show the afterwards of cleanup, and they don't show any parts of if someone's experiencing pain, they don't show pain. If they're experiencing
Yeah.
pleasure, they show all pleasure, and everything is very hype. It's entertainment for adults.
Yeah, it's overdone. Overacted, as you say.
Let's back up a little bit. Because I want to build up. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk a lot about what we were just talking about.
Oh,
but
yeah.
you grew up here in Utah, no?
Yeah, grew up in Payson, Utah.
Payson, of all places. So a
Payson.
very conservative town.
Very conservative, it's funny. My name's Braxton, and so we've got the Braxton Hicks contractions.
I actually thought about that when I was typing your name.
Yep.
I was having one as I typed your name.
But really?
Oh yeah. I
Oh,
have
she's
them
been
all
getting them like crazy.
constantly.
Yeah, for those that know, so some of the people that knew would call me Hicks, and I grew up in a hick town, essentially. Payson wasn't super well established when I was growing up. We'd barely gotten a Walmart when I was like maybe 8, and that put us on the map.
Yeah.
And now it's got its own little metropolis thing with the temple down there and everything. But yeah, very conservative growing up.
So what brought you to Salt Lake? Was it going to the University of Utah?
Yeah,
then?
University of Utah. I was working at Sprinkler World and doing truck driving there, heading to Price all the time. And I was like, oh, I'll do this, go to UVU, get my social work degree, and then I'll start my master's. And one day I was like, I've got to go up to the U. That's just where I need to be. And I was like, well, that's expensive, and I have to leave my parents' house, and I had to leave a lot of security. And I came up here, rented a basement over by Liberty Park, and started into my degree working at Odyssey House.
And how long have you been here in Salt Lake then?
So I've been in Salt Lake since 2011, so fall 2011. So that put us 6 years.
Was it tough at first? I'm always curious. I never really dabble there with people, right? From moving from a town like Payson, right?
Mm-hmm.
To a place like Salt Lake. I mean,
city.
Big city.
To me, I still look at Salt Lake as a small little town, but
It
you
is.
probably looked at it as a huge city.
Well, and I went on a mission to San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
So that was my big, whoa, I don't get to talk to my parents. And now I'm in San Antonio with big buildings and a bunch of different freeways, no mountains. So I was lost all the time. But Austin, San Antonio, I was there, and then coming back home, I'd been off my mission maybe a year or something, doing some schooling down at UVU. And then when I came to Salt Lake, it was like, I can ride a bus. I know how to get around. I had a car. I got things figured out pretty quick.
After going to the U, did you know you wanted to get into sex therapy?
No, it was actually it'd been my first semester in the master's program. So my summer semester in the master's program was when I was like, wait, I can get paid to do sex therapy? Like to talk to people about sex, to educate, to
just
work
sounds
people
like a
through
nightmare.
that?
Well, no, it sounds kind of fun.
Really?
Like there's a part of me that's like,
It is
as a
interesting.
kid, you don't think about as a kid, you think about being a policeman, a fireman, maybe
Yeah.
a dog catcher.
I think the scary thing, like for me, is like I just don't know enough to talk to people. You know what I mean? That's kind of sad to say, but like, how do you know what to
Yeah, but
talk
you're not
to people
alone.
about?
There's so many adults that have no
We're all a bunch of
They weren't
idiots.
taught.
Okay.
They weren't taught.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're fine. Like, what kind of classes do you take for this? Like, what? I'm intrigued. I mean, what? I don't know. I'm going to bounce all over
No,
the place.
like,
I guess
how
we
do
need.
you
To, I, mean,
get-
I guess.
how do you
I guess we need to
become a sex
start. We need to start at number one here. So, classes.
Okay.
What kind of classes? I mean, I'm sure you even need to learn about all the weird fetishes out there. You need to learn about.
So here's the crazy part is that the majority of master's programs or any type of program for therapists don't offer a sex education class, or it's an elective. So this was an elective up at the University of Utah, and it was the first semester that they'd offered it. And I was like, human sexuality, that sounds cool. So I was originally going in as a therapist to work with survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. So that was what I started my degree looking for, was wanting to work with survivors. And I did a lot of work and volunteer work with that population. And I got into the human sexuality class thinking, yeah, this will help me as I continue on with my therapy. And Kristen Hodson was in there, and she's the owner of the healing group where I work at now. And she was talking to us, and I was overly excited. I even questioned myself a little bit. I was like, am I just kind of a perv? Like,
Well, sure. I'm sure.
And
it
that's
comes
a
in you-
healthy thing
yeah.
to, that's like a healthy first thought, because then you're not.
yeah, I was
You
like,
know?
well, maybe I'm just like, maybe I'm feeling like attraction to like a student or to the teacher. I don't know, because I had no idea what was going on with me.
Yeah.
I just felt like this is the place I need to be, and I love being here. And then she was up in front of the class one day, and she's like, and if you're interested, there's this certification that you can go through to be a sex therapist. And I was like, wait, what? You can get paid to be like a full-on sex therapist that works with survivors of sexual assault. Not only that, but teaching people about sex. And I'm just like, that's what I need to do. So it was just
Yeah.
kind of burning inside of me, like, oh, I'm not a perv. I'm not attracted to anyone in here. I'm just really excited about this topic, and I want to share it with everyone.
I guess, I don't know, should we fast forward a little bit? Just because I want to get right into what it's like being a sex
Should we get
therapist.
into the good stuff? We want to get to know you as a person too, but we don't want to objectify you as a sex
Well,
therapist.
no, I mean, there's only, the thing is, I mean, I really feel like this could be a 2 and 3 part episode
yeah.
podcast.
I would love that.
I mean,
No,
it's just
right? Just
fascinating.
because to me, there's so much to talk about. I think sex is like one of the number one things couples fight about. And not even that they fight about it, but I think it's very hard. Even you and I mean, we're probably not the best communicative. I think always.
it affects you without realizing what the problem actually is.
Sure.
If there's a problem or like a lack of intimacy, things like that. It's not something that you put 2 and 2 together. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Ever.
No, and maybe we'll use this as a little bit as a therapy
Yeah,
session here.
you guys
know what
go
I mean?
into it.
Free therapy.
Free therapy.
No, so what? Like, if say I was to call up the healing group, right? That's where you work,
Yeah.
right? How many sex therapists are there?
There are 2 right now.
Oh, so there's only 2. So I
Kristen's
I
a sex
imagine
therapist.
like
We've
a
got
dozen or something.
Well, we've got another. Alicia Worthington is a sex educator and a sex coach. So essentially, and before we start thinking like, oh, we're having sex in the office, that's essentially someone will come in and say, hey, we need some support. Things aren't working.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is getting down to the nitty gritty of, okay, this is the parts of the vulva. These are the parts of the penis. This is how this is all going to work out. And you guys get to find out how you like it to work out. And so she does that right now. And she's in the middle of getting her certification, and she's in the master's program to be a therapist as well. So she'll be a sex therapist when she graduates.
So if I was to call up there and I didn't know you, how would I get hooked? Like, what would be the reason I would get hooked up with you versus the other sex therapist there?
So you'd call the healing group and say, hey, I'm looking for Braxton. But if you didn't know me, you would say, hey, I'm experiencing some issues. I want to see a therapist. They would prod just a little bit. You don't have to tell everything. They'd say, like, is there something specific you're looking for? And you might say, I'm having some problems with pornography use and I want to talk to someone, or I'm having erectile issues and I want to explore this. The doctor says I need to, or whatever it may be. And they say, oh, well, we have these 2 therapists. Braxton's seeing new clients right now. These are the times that he's open. Would you like to do a phone consultation with him to see if it works out, or to see if you guys are a good fit together, or would you like to just come in and start working with him? And We'd send out some paperwork and get some information from you. I get that paperwork prior to, and then I ask you questions about what's really happening. We kind of set up where we want to go.
My curiosity, before I forget to ask this, I doubt I'd forget to ask this, but obviously we're Salt Lake City, we're Utah. People's first thought is religion, right? People's first thought is your religious beliefs might say pornography's bad, masturbation's bad, this is bad. So is that fair to say that, do you teach that all pornography is bad and all masturbation is bad?
Oh, it's a really good question what you're asking too.
Hopefully I made sense,
that makes
right?
sense.
Yeah.
At what point is it? Sorry.
It's just like even addiction. I agree. Yeah, you can be addicted to it. You can go down some wormholes in that stuff. But is it bad to watch a little pornography?
See, and this is where we get into, there's a couple different camps in sex therapy. That there's the addiction camp where there's a lot of therapists that say like, yes, porn, and there is porn and sex addiction. And then there's another camp that's saying, it's not an addiction. It's a behavior that you need to learn to either control, or that there's some maladaptive behaviors that you're experiencing and you want to learn how to cope in a different way. And because as we look at addiction with substances, like we can go throughout our entire life without using heroin. Like I've never used heroin. And
no, I'm just kidding.
Are you sure?
I was trying to think of some witty response. You're from Patient. No, I'm just kidding.
But being a human, you're innately a sexual being.
Sure.
We have sexual parts, we have sexual desires. Even if you identify as asexual and you're like, I don't have any sexual desire to be with someone or experiencing that you're still navigating a sexual world. And so depending on trying to find out what normal is and what's addicted and what's not enough is really, really sticky. It's hard to
I think addiction could be more like just functioning in life, right? Like where you're like, oh, I'd rather sit home and watch porn than go hang out with friends. Or even down to, I found this within myself where when I was dating, for example, right? When I was single, where I found the more porn I watched, the less desire I actually had for a female contact. And that was kind of where I was like, well, okay, this is satisfying me as a person. Like there's something wrong with it. If I'd rather sit at home and look at my computer than go out and talk to a female.
And that's exactly like our relationship with food too. There's been times I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I love ice cream. And I've learned there's been a couple situations where I'm like, wow, 2 or 3 bowls of ice cream in one night is not good for me. Like sick stomach. Right. And then over time, ask my friends. They end up saying like, growing up, I was just always into ice cream.
Sure.
I love ice cream.
It's good. It's good, man.
Wow, you really like
What's your favorite? What's your favorite kind of ice cream?
It's the mint chocolate chip.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a really good one. With like the flaky chips.
With the flaky chips, yeah. Flaky chips. And then
we got a pregnant woman over here that loves ice cream. And so that's, I put on about, 10, 15 pounds with this pregnancy. Anyway, so you love ice cream.
Yeah, so I love ice cream, but I realize that it is not the most healthy for me to eat it every night or to eat it multiple times a night, or even, if I want to watch my weight and my cholesterol, then I probably should space it out. And I actively say, you know what, I really want ice cream tonight. However, I'm choosing not to.
And that's more like being an adult. We have to do that with everything in our lives.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, Chris. Like, it's unhealthy when it gets to an extent where it is debilitating in life. Like it's doing something to affect your life. But I know everyone has different opinions.
Well, and everybody can handle it differently. It's just like even smoking cigarettes, right? Some people can smoke 1 or 2 on a Saturday night. And then there's people like me where it's like, I know if I go back to smoking cigarettes, I want to smoke 3 packs in one day, right? And so it's like, okay, I got to stay away from it. I don't have that certain capabilities. And there's some people, hey, you know what? They can just look at a little magazine, look at some boobs, whatever, and they're fine with that. Instead of being like, oh, I'm going to go home and look at 2 or 3 hours of porn instead of going on an actual date with a girl.
Yeah. And when the way you're saying that, and I like how you put it, Chrissy, is it causing distress in your life? And that's what I meet the person where they're at, where where the distress is coming from. So I see couples and individuals that have come in, they're like, Braxton, I'm so addicted to porn, I can't function. And they're looking at pornography once or twice a month.
And they say they're addicted,
Yeah,
and they look at it once or twice a month.
Honey, I got some people to introduce you to.
It is all, and then there's some that are like, it's been a couple times, I'm having a hard time. I, see it, 3 or 4 times a week or daily, or that's the goal, is to be like, I'd like to just watch it a couple times a week, or I don't want to watch it at all. It varies so much. And that's why the addiction word is so interesting when I hear it, because people walk in, I hear it every time. Every time comes in, I'm addicted to porn. And I say, tell me about that. What does that look like for you? And I've got couples coming in where the wife is saying, he's addicted to porn, fix his relationship.
I bet that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Because most women don't like their men looking at porn, right?
That all depends.
Yeah, I have in the past, like in relationships, noticed that porn has been watched, and then text the person I'm with, and I'm like, those aren't MILFs. They've never had kids. Look at them. You get defensive as a woman because you're like, I can't be like that, and so I think it's easier for us to believe that men have a problem because we are insecure.
And as a therapist, that's what I'm looking for, is what is going on underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So the pornography, is it being used as a coping skill? Is it being used as an escape? Is the partner in the relationship, in this case, we're talking the wife, is she feeling insecure? How's that insecurity coming up in their relationship? Is it arguments? Are they avoiding a bigger topic, and the pornography is another piece? Is it really the pornography? If it is, let's work on that. Let's work on what the goals are for the relationship. But each person comes in and it's vastly different, and it ranges. So when I hear addiction, all I hear is, what does the addiction look like to you? Because I believe in the distress. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. That someone comes in and says, this is affecting our relationship. He looks at pornography once every 6 months, and we're about to get divorced. That's a real issue for a couple.
Divorce once every 6 months,
or once a month,
easy
or whatever
buzzword.
It may be.
People think, well, if something's wrong, there has to be an addiction.
Yeah.
And we use it. I'm an ice cream addict. Like, I think I used that growing up in high school. I'm like, I'm so addicted to ice cream.
Yeah.
Is it tough? Like in Utah, do you find it's hard for people to open up? Do you find that it's hard? Like, I know how it is even sometimes if I go into the doctor, right? And I'm just like, I've been into like regular therapy.
That's true. Like, you don't even want to open up that much because they'll judge you.
But I mean, this is like, sex is kind of a quiet subject.
Very, very quiet.
It has to be so different being a sex therapist in Utah. As opposed to other states.
To be honest, I'm a pretty open guy, but still, you get uncomfortable. You're like, how do you bring things up into the bedroom? How do you? Not that Chrissy's over there sitting like, well, what isn't he bringing up? But not that I have all these things. But you know what I mean? Like, It's kind of one of those things where you're like, I don't want to be thought of as a weird person, or
completely. Those are very normal feelings to have.
I don't want to be thought of as a weird, as a freak.
See, and here's and from like, I don't know if most women would agree with me or not, but I think just like when you said, "Am I weird?" Like, if those thoughts are the first things to cross your mind, I think you're probably a healthy person, and you're like, okay, I know that this might sound weird, but how does this feel to you?
And most people want to just know that they're normal. That's one of the main questions I get is that normal? Mm-hmm. Am I within the bell curve? Like, am I just too far out? And am I broken? I get a lot of those questions.
Really? People they want to know if
they
want
to know they're normal.
Yeah.
And
have you ever, like, I know you can't, I understand you got confidentiality. I'm not looking to, but do you ever like tell someone they're normal and you walk away and you're like, oh my gosh, that is the weirdest person? I don't know. Maybe you can't. Can't even say that. Honestly. Training, like, you know what I mean?
Good
like, because you can't tell someone that they're a freak. You can't be like, you're nuts.
The more that I go through the training, so this is, as I've gone through ASECT, which is the American Association for Sexual Educators, Counselors, and Therapists.
Yeah.
It's all about sex therapy, education, and counseling. They go through they put you through a lot of different trainings so that you can see the spectrum. Uh-huh. Now, if it was just me, and this is kind of the difference between the being certified and ASECT certified therapist and me graduating with my degree in social work and saying, okay, I'm bink, I'm a sex therapist. I have sex. I know about kind of the ins and outs of sexuality, so I'll talk to you about it. Is that I've got a lot of my bias. So starting out as a therapist, you may have someone that comes in and says like, oh yeah, I'm very into this, or, you know what, I have sex 5 times a week. It can be very easy for me to be like, well, I don't have sex 5 times a week. That's abnormal because it's against my norm. The thing about the training I go through is that we cover all gamuts in extremes. So I see sex on a spectrum, and yes, you're normal. Like, I don't see anything that is abnormal, especially as we start to get into sexual health principles. So is it consensual? Is it, are you
breaking the law, right? I mean, that's, I think as long as you're not breaking the law, I mean.
Is it honest?
Or actively hurting someone.
Underage obviously is creepy and weird, like that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, so as long as it's consensual, that people have access to protection from STIs, from protection from pregnancy, that there's honesty within the relationship or however you're going about it, and that you're covering these different areas, that you can be and experience your sexual fantasy. Fantasies are wonderful. Fetishes, they're wonderful. All these things are amazing as long as there is consent and you've got this honest piece to it, and relationships can thrive. Individuals can thrive, whether you're really into one-night stands or very into monogamy, and as long as those things are being represented and honored, you fall into the normal zone.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times, even as I'm saying this, I know that there's listeners that are probably like, yeah, normal. I mean, you don't know me, or, that is not normal.
Find someone you're kind of not normal, right?
Yeah.
We need to take a quick break to play a message from our sponsor real fast, though. So hold that thought, and we'll be right back. This episode of I Am Salt Lake Podcast is proudly sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, 9 to 7, and Sunday, 12 to 5. Their newest location is located at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. They also have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and up in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. No appointment is necessary. Just show up, get yourself a haircut. Maybe you have a last-minute date or a job interview. Jed's Barbershop is the place for you. Head on over to their website at jedsbarbershop.com for more information.
The first episode you listened to was the sex doll episode.
Yes, it was.
Have you ever had to deal with a person like that? A person who can't connect with actual people? From today, I have not had someone come in and say, all right, I need a doll in order to feel like that's okay to connect. I do deal with people like, I can't feel, I have a hard time connecting with my partner like
or
sociopaths.
Connecting with people. Not that they don't experience emotion. I have worked with sociopaths though, yes.
Ugh.
Just not in my sex therapy practice, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was mostly in my Odyssey House and criminal justice services days, doing drug court.
If a couple, like, say, I'm going to use you and I, Chrissy, as an example. If we were to come to you, what kind of homework, what would you tell us to do? I mean, I guess
what are you guys coming into me for?
No, after I kind of said that, I was like, well, that's kind of a tough question to answer because it is very vague. Do you recommend books, or do you recommend things to do in the bedroom, or talking? Again, I guess it depends on what we're coming to you for.
Totally. So Chrissy's question earlier was, she's like, how do I even talk to my kids about sex? Especially,
yeah, sure. Let's go there.
Who's your oldest?
My daughter is 13.
13.
Yeah.
So a book, if you're like, I have no idea, I would recommend Al Vernacchio's For Goodness Sex. His book is all about, it is phenomenal for teen and talking to parents, talking to teens and how parents can talk to their teens about sex and what they're going through and the questions they might have. He's even, at the end of every chapter, he's got a question that real teens that he teaches at a school have dropped in his question box. It's a no holds bar. You can ask any question you want. And it's got the teen's question and how he answers. And it's phenomenal. It brings in values. In fact, he's actually coming to the Utah or to the Rocky Mountain Sex Summit here in September.
Yeah, and you're sponsoring that.
Yeah.
Let's actually talk about that. So you brought up, what is the Rocky Mountain Sex Summit, you said?
Yeah, the Rocky Mountain Sex Summit.
Is everybody invited?
Yeah, everyone's invited, yeah.
You might get the wrong crowd. I don't know.
Everyone's invited, and so you can buy your tickets at RockyMountainSexSummit.com.
And when is it?
That's the 22nd and 23rd this year of September.
Okay, so yeah, it's
coming up quick.
Yeah, this will be up before then, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're signing up, you can use Brax Ambass 2017. That's BRAX Ambass, ABM. I'm having a hard time with that. BRAX Ambass,
AMBASS.
Thank you.
Yeah.
2017, just the numbers, and that'll give you $25 off of the ticket price. It is essentially the second year that we've done it. The first year we had a sex researcher and a sex therapist, Gina Ogden and Emily Nagoski came in, and it was phenomenal. This year is going to be so amazing too. We've got Marty Klein, who is a sex educator and a sex therapist. He's been doing it for over 30 years, and he goes international. So he talks to ambassadors from all over the world on how their country, how their city addresses sexuality, and he trains all over the country. He has a blog that he puts on, and he does a lot of really cool stuff. He's going to be coming and talking about pornography within couples and how that all works out, how you can address it, as well as what people really want in sex. You know, is this connection, this real satisfying sex. And Al Vernacchio's coming. He's going to even have one night where you can ask him anything. He'd come up open mic. My teens are doing this. What do you do? I want to know this. How do you talk to your kid about this? And
what's your favorite kind of lube?
What's your favorite lube?
That's an important question. At these summits or at these gatherings, do you ever have maybe more religious side of people come like picket or be upset that you're talking about pornography openly?
We haven't had a picket sign yet.
That's
we haven't
cool.
had people come out and protest it. And
Well, they're
this
not
year,
advocating porn, I don't think. You're not
no, it's not
promoting
If you're
it.
openly talking about it, I could see some people being like, "Why are you talking about?" Oh, absolutely. Don't you think?
Which is real
I
interesting
guess,
because
yeah.
it's a public health crisis here in Utah. Like
Isn't that weird, though?
That's what we've labeled it.
Do you think it's a public health crisis?
I think it's a public health crisis that we don't have sex education.
That's what I think the real issue is. And that's the thing is, like in Utah, you don't talk about it. They don't have sex education in high school.
Wait. Time out here. So I didn't go to public high school. I was homeschooled, right? First of all, my mom horrible with sex ed for me. They don't so your kids will not have sex ed at school.
No.
They'll have
option.
they'll have a maturation program, which will essentially split up the girls and the boys. The boys will learn about the penis, a little bit about the vulva.
But mostly just put on deodorant.
Mostly put on deodorant.
And that's what you took your son to, right?
And
I took my son and his best friend to it, and it was really fun.
Wow. So that's all they get.
Yeah, that's
all
you
they
get it about 2 years, and then you get health class, which will then you get to follow the vas deferens and go, where does the sperm go? And
really,
you
not
can follow
even
the trail of the egg, and that's about what you get. You don't get, you especially don't get condom use. You don't get understanding contraception.
Whoa.
You don't understand relationship. We're not even talking just sex. We're talking relationships. What is a healthy relationship? How you can identify what you want, sexual orientation. Nothing. You don't get any of that.
Are those things that you're mentioning, are those more like, can you find those in other states? Like you're from Wisconsin.
Yeah, you totally can. I mean, that's what they talk about. And the thing is, from talking with people who have gone to public school here in Utah, they feel like they've been
cheated,
denied something.
Yeah.
Like they should have had this information. But I think a lot of the public education here centers around if we talk about it, then you'll know about it, then you'll go do it.
Why isn't sex?
You know what I mean? I think they're afraid if they let you know it's out there, oh crap, I said gay, now you're gay. I gave you the gay bug.
Give you
You
the
know
gay
what I
bug.
mean? Like,
Okay, no, but this is public schools, right?
Yeah.
Why isn't sex ed taught here in Utah? I didn't realize
because
this.
can we be perfectly frank? The church and state is not.
Well, no, and I
separated
realize
here.
that, but at the same time, this isn't private schools that we're talking.
No,
like it
this is
should be an
public
option.
school.
If obviously we're gonna have a daughter together. If I want to raise, she should be allowed. If I want to send her to say this is this.
Like,
Okay,
it's just-
sorry,
this
this
is
is
what-
all new to me.
This is some
new.
of the pieces that are the argument, a big argument of it is that parents should be teaching it at home. And I completely agree. I think parents.
say that.
I do.
I don't wanna
I'm
deal
with
with
you,
that
Chrissy. I'm looking at you. But
Yes
having
and
that
no,
responsibility
though.
is a
Yes
big
and
part
no.
of it.
But they should be, I think high schools, they should be giving out free condoms to kids. I think they should be teaching them how to use them. And I think, I don't think it should
And that's
be taught
the
as
farthest from the table.
I feel like it shouldn't be taught to be a bad word.
Yeah, it's an abstinence only program.
I know people my age that are still embarrassed to go into a 7-Eleven and buy a condom.
And
I'm almost 40 years
across here.
old.
Wow.
Like what? You should not be embarrassed to go buy a condom.
Yeah.
And there's legislation. I believe it's I'm going to mess up if it's senator or a representative, but King.
We won't hold you to it if you got it wrong.
Something King, Senator King. He's been sponsoring bills for sex education, and that's one that gets picketed every year. That they'll go up and try and pass it through, and there's people avidly against. And we're not just talking like how to have sex, but we're talking like relationship.
What are they afraid of is going to happen? Again, I guess it goes back to they're afraid it's going to make it more like, because at the end of the day, I should be allowed what my kid wants to do.
Yeah. And a lot of it comes back to parents saying this is something we should have in the home and that we can teach, and we don't want.
Could you
wanna
say that
control the way
about
it's taught.
math and English?
Well, I think that
and
about the
science?
DARE programs when we teach kids about drugs.
Oh my gosh. Even the DARE program, it's like sometimes you're just like, oh, okay, well, sometimes.
Well, at least they took
this is bad.
they finally took marijuana out of the DARE system. Finally.
Did they?
Oh yeah. A handful of years ago, finally took that out. But
It's not the gateway drug anymore.
Yeah.
yeah, they don't even talk about that. But that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, the
but,
thing that we're running into the most is we don't talk about it. It's essentially, we are saying, okay, porn's a public health crisis just as much as, polio or something like that, like real public health crisis. And then we don't give the information or the support to help combat it. It's like, all right, we've got this public health crisis, but nobody talk about it.
Yeah. And so it's
it
almost like.
keeps you in business, though.
It makes me sad. I think it makes me the most sad because I think that I'd still be in business with people wanting to increase their relationships, but I find it the worst that instead of increasing the relationship in intimacy, like physical and emotional intimacy, we're trying to figure out how sex works and understanding what a healthy relationship looks like, and that people are ultimately learning about sex through pornography, through friends, through the media. The media is a big one. We watch movies, we watch all this, and it's got everyone, coming together, and sex just kind of happens on the fly, and there's this burst of 1,000 suns when they walk through the door, and it's like, oh, this is the best. And we're looking for those relationships, and that's what we're looking at. It's like, my relationship's not like
without tripping.
Oh, or
come
have
on.
shower sex. That's my favorite to watch. I was like, yeah, right. You can,
That's
but
not
it is
even
like it
realistic.
is not the way that everything is. Like there's a lube canister somewhere around, or
Yeah.
you're
Or even
having
like swimming pools, right?
swimming pools, and because you can. Again,
It's
I'm
gonna
not saying
suck.
you can't, and I'm not saying that people haven't, but there is a better chance that you're going to have less pain if you're using lubricant, and water's not a lubricant, and there is more of a chance that you just got home from a long day at work and she just got home from a long day at work or being with the kids, or you guys are stressed out about something, and the last thing that really wants to happen is like, oh my gosh, I just saw my partner like run to each other in slow motion and my clothes are already off and let's start penetrative sex right now.
Yeah. And really, it does boil down to you're more of a relationship therapist, right?
And that's what it comes down to is I do relationship with sex, and sex is always on the table to
They're
talk about.
important.
I bring it up.
Let's talk about, before we completely run out of time, we'll get back to sex and stuff like that. I want to make sure we talk about your podcast. You do a really cool podcast called, it's the Birds and the Bees podcast, right?
Yeah.
Can I just have my kids listen to that?
Maybe.
It's meant for you, so you can stay one page ahead of them. Like
Okay,
that's
cool.
all you've got to do is be one chapter ahead of your kids on addressing it. And we've got one on there. I did a podcast with Alicia Worthington that is sexual development throughout the lifespan of just from when they're born and how you start having sexual conversations with your infants and toddlers and when they become preteens and teens and adults and when they become older adults and how you experience bodies. And that's been a really fun one that we've done. And that's one I would recommend to you just because it covers all the different aspects of a child growing up and how you can have these small conversations. You don't need to sit down and be like, okay, this is the most awkward thing I've ever done. You can sense it and you don't want to talk to me about it. Do you have sex? No? Okay, keep it that way.
Yeah.
Do you know how it works? I'm glad that you're having that conversation, that you brought it up, but it doesn't have to be this huge thing. It doesn't have to be like, all right, we're going to talk about everything right now.
It's like ripping off the Band-Aid. You're like, I did it. It's over. Parenting win.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I mean, I don't have kids. I don't know how this girl's going to be, this baby girl that's still inside you, Chrissy, while we're recording this. Who knows? Might have it tomorrow. We don't know, right? So maybe this will be up and we'll already have the baby. You don't know, right? But what I hope to happen is she's comfortable talking to us, right?
Yeah.
But I know that still is difficult because I know even you and I have uncomfortableness. And not even with sex, but just in life, right? Like sometimes it's hard
Having a talk is uncomfortable.
Just to communicate. Yeah. Even if you're like, well, I don't really like the way you make that pizza, right? I mean, we have obstacles. I could imagine sex is very difficult.
Yeah.
I've never had to talk about it with anybody, you know?
And having just those, and you can identify that, be like, this is awkward for me.
Yeah.
And one of the ones for little kids, in the LDS community, and maybe even in other ones, but I grew up LDS, that you've got head, shoulders, knees, and toes. You guys know that song?
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we got head, shoulders, knees, and toes. You can add penis, vulva to that.
I love it. Can we go home and sing it to the kids tonight?
Sure.
No,
You can. But all we're doing is normalizing.
I mean, when my daughter
sex.
was, maybe like 8, and I was always like, those are your girl parts. Those are your girl parts. And one day she's like, what are my girl parts called? And I was so scared. And I was
So you didn't raise them teaching her that it was a vagina?
No, I'm very squeamish.
Really?
And so I was like, it's your vagina. And she's all, vagina. She's like singing it. She thinks it's the best word. And I was just like, shh, don't let people hear
That
you
is
sing.
so awesome, Chrissy. I am so proud of you. That is the coolest. 100%. That makes me
Except,
so
we
happy.
were at the in-laws' house, and it's
Yeah,
like,
but I think
crap.
people understand when
Yeah.
a kid's, they discover these awesome words like vagina and penis and.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? That's the risk that, I mean, I don't want to call it a risk. However, that is something that's going to come up. You'll be in the store and you've been using this, penis, vagina terminology, and they might be in the middle of the story and you're like, I have a penis. And you're like, yeah, you do. And we can talk more about that at home.
Or they'll be like, that guy over there has a penis or something like that, right? You know what I mean? But I think.
And you
people laugh.
can sit there and just recognize that you're going to feel mortified, and you are allowed to feel mortified. And if your daughter comes up to you later on and is like, Mom, what's a blowjob? And you just go, oh, where did you learn that word? And please, God, no. You can then
Teacher?
You can ask.
Yeah, you probably should, because then really you're just going to push them to go learn somewhere else.
And you'll be like,
in
well, let's
reality.
find something. You look around the house
we
and
want
there's a
them to come to
screwdriver
you.
there and you're just.
Well, and a lot of the times what they're asking for is they're asking for some clarification, and they just want a little bit of information, and you can always go on to giving them more information. You don't have to jump to pornography or showing how the function is.
You don't have to give them a tape and be like, just wash your hands when you're done.
Well, and they're notorious for asking you when you're doing the dishes or something that's like, well, right now is not the time. And you can ask for that. You can be like, that's a wonderful question. Thank you for being honest with me and asking that question. Is it all right if we talk about it before you go to bed today? You can push it off, but make sure you follow through with it.
yeah.
Because if you push it off to bedtime, then you can go and have your freak out in your room like, oh my gosh, why did this happen? And You can, or even like, I don't know what a blowjob is, and you can go Google it or find out what you need to, or call me and ask me
like, how do I say this?
Chrissy knows what a blowjob is. We kind of steered clear of the podcast though. I want to
I'm so sorry.
A few more questions about you. So Birds and the Bees podcast.
Yeah.
I want everyone, who's listening, go check it out. It might not be your cup of tea, but all the podcast outlets, I'm sure, right? iTunes, Stitcher, all that.
I'm on
right?
iTunes and Stitcher right now.
Yeah.
And the podcast, the reason I wanted to do the podcast is because there isn't sex education here in Utah the way that it needs to be done. So I have conversations anywhere from, right now we've got, sexual orientation, like sexual fluidity, to kids growing up and how to talk to them about sex. One of the most recent ones is Birth 101, where we talk about what to expect when you go in for labor and what rights you have and how you can really prepare for that instead of just walking into it. But the main goal for me is I wanted people to have an ability to get correct information about sexuality, bring that back and talk to their kids about it, as well as talk with each other about healthy sexuality. How does a couple build healthy sexuality and intimacy? How can you build that relationship with your kids, and just give out this information to parents and to couples so that we can continue this education in a free way.
You love doing a podcast, right?
I do. I love it.
What even got you introduced? What made you think, I should do a podcast? I mean, was there
I didn't know too much about podcasts. So I was up at the University of Utah and I was a radio DJ. I was B-Rax on the tracks for 3 years.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I think you mentioned you knew Sasha up there, right?
Yeah. So I met Sasha Bloom up there. And, Johnny McKeon, I think he's over in Mix 103.
He's actually down by K-Bear now.
Is he K-Bear?
Well, with those radio stations, whatever K-Bear and
Family. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're. Is it not Cumulus? No, I don't know.
Yeah, and there's a couple and I know a couple DJs down in Texas now. Just because we all went from the U and all went there, and I was like the therapist, and I love doing rock and roll 80s music with stupid people in the news. And so I did that for 3 years, talking into a mic, and it's like, man, I love this. It's too bad I can't do this. And all of a sudden, I can't remember how it even started, but I think I started hearing about podcasts, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could just record myself and record these interviews, because I interview people on the Birds and Bees podcast. And I was like, I could start that. And so one day with the Island Wave,
oh, yeah, it's
Camille.
Camille, yeah.
Yeah, Kamiley. There it is.
Yeah, Kamiley.
I always see it written out in my head.
I always say Camille, too. Yeah,
Kamiley was
Kamiley.
like, come on, let's do a recording. And I did that, and like, well, I got to get some stuff. So I did, and that's really where my passion is spreading sex education, relationship education, and building those, because I love seeing couples and individuals own who they are and identify who they are when we have not talked about this. And the Birds and Bees podcast is one of the ways that I do that. And I bring professionals on so that we can really identify the truth around sexuality, and that we can learn in such a great way.
And I think it's great for your business, for your practice, because then it allows listeners to get to know you a little bit. And then, hey, this Braxton's an all right guy. He's an authority with what he's got going on. I want to go meet with him and talk to him.
Probably
about
make people open up and be
the
more
fact that I wear baby diapers and I look at porn once every 6 years.
Once every 6 years.
It's an addiction.
Once every.
and I love that piece of it too, is because the whole time I'm talking to professionals, and I'm just as much as like learning even more pieces to it as I do the podcast.
Well, we're always learning.
Yeah,
man.
right.
Like, nobody's ever an expert, right?
Yeah,
From
there's
day
no true
one.
expert.
There's no,
and we're always learning and research.
Sure. Let's kind of switch gears a little bit, or was there something?
I do want to say one thing, because we started out all this with the question about religion and sex.
Yeah.
I do find that super important in therapy, that we bring in religion. A lot of times we want to separate it. I think it's real important to have religion brought into the therapy session.
What
religion
if you're an
brought into
atheist?
sex.
What about if you're an
Same
atheist?
thing, because there's so many talks about it. Like, if you're an atheist growing up in Utah, you've had some sort of indoctrination of how sex should be just through interacting with so many LDS individuals. Mm-hmm. If you're down in the Bible Belt at Texas or anywhere like that, there's this society around you. And if you're an atheist, exploring what that means to you about sex. If it means nothing, awesome. Then we don't, we can explore that. We don't have to, but there's stories that you've been told, or there's beliefs that you have that are being molded and created around you just because you live in a religious society.
I mean, I remember growing up, I mean, we don't need to get heavy into this, but I mean, I remember hearing fights about certain people believing sex was solely for procreation. So, I mean, there's a lot of,
No
whether you
what,
feel that way or not, it's what
people
you hear.
are going to
it's what
push their beliefs on you.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think,
and it is completely, I believe thoroughly, and I've watched it time and time again, and Al Vernacchio and a lot of other professionals agree that you can have values and have sexual conversations and talk about sex. You can bring your own values into it, and that's perfectly fine, and it's expected. We need to have those values. It's what makes us us, and sex makes us us as well. So to say, well, I'm going to talk about sex, but I'm not going to talk about religion is it's not realistic. And to talk about religion and not talk about sex, that's unrealistic as well. We're missing pieces that make us human. No,
your humanity, basically.
Yeah.
I dig it.
what if somebody's like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't even ask this question, but what if somebody's like, man, I'm really religious, but I want to have sex this way, but my religion tells me not to, but I really want to have sex a certain way. I don't know. I guess
that's a really good.
That's a hard question to answer because
there was a big thing in the 70s.
There's a lot of things that
that.
religions say, okay, you should only do it this way, or you should only, so then they feel bad and then they end up cracking, or they end up having these really weird, dark fantasies.
The culture can decipher what's okay and what's not okay. And what that question you asked is a few sessions of what is it that
Electrotherapy.
Electrotherapy. Yeah, we can hook up the battery up to your nipples.
I've met people that have gone through electrotherapy down at
that is
BYU, down there for being homosexual.
Oh, yeah, they
man.
used to do that program.
That stopped in the late 80s, I think it was.
But what were reversion therapy?
Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother topic.
That's
for
the other thing.
And it's not, and it is not
Practiced.
If it is being practiced, it's underground and it is not ethical.
Yes.
So
agreed.
I do not practice that. No one that you should be seeing. If anyone offers that to you, report them because it's not.
Is it against the law?
It's not ethical.
It seems like torture. It would be illegal, I would think.
I would say, and I don't know about torture illegal in that sense, but it is for your licensing board. So if I were to try and do some change therapy or electroshock therapy in the sense of like I'm going to change you from gay to straight. That's against, I believe it's every board that practices social work, licensed marriage family therapist, any therapist out there, their ethics board is going to take away their license.
Good. That's all.
Salt Lake City, couple questions I got to ask them here on the podcast. If somebody was visiting Salt Lake City for a day, for a weekend, a couple of days, let's say a weekend, is there something you would tell them to go check out, something to visit?
Really good question. For ice cream stuff. Going back to that.
Let's talk ice cream.
Actually, this is important because we have discussed how there is a lack of good ice cream in downtown Salt Lake.
Is it really? You think so?
Remember, we were like, where do we get ice cream?
Well, Snell Groves used to be down there or was that Snell Groves?
I think it was Snell Groves, and now it's Jimmy John's, right?
Jimmy John's, because was that there when you were going to the U? Probably, with the ice cream cone there.
It was gone. When I was there, but then Jimmy John's took it over and turned the ice cream cone into.
They kept the ice cream cone.
Yeah, they still did.
That's just the saddest thing. Okay, continue.
So I love. And it's not even really ice cream-ish, but it's Korean. It's called bingsu is what the dish is called. Yeah. And it is shaved ice. It's so finely shaven. It's like snow. And they put sweetened condensed milk in it and then put mangoes and mango sauce or strawberries and strawberry sauce over the top of it. Oh, my heavens. It changed my life. And you can only get that in Salt Lake at, it's called Mungai, which is off 35th South, right by... just right down the street from the Maverick Center.
Okay, so about Redwood Road-ish.
No, it's 215 and 3500 South.
Okay.
So it's over by About
by
Time.
The old Wise Guys.
Yeah, the old Wise Guys used to be over there.
Yeah, and there's an old theater that was over there as well. But it's essentially I wish I knew what east that was. But yeah, it's called Mungai. MY something.
We'll have to go there sometime.
Oh yeah.
If just for that's really, really good for that. I love Leatherby's. Leatherby's is really good for ice cream. That's got really good stuff. For burgers, I love Lucky 13 or Rich's downtown, right downtown.
I've heard nothing but good about Rich's.
Oh, Rich's is phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's got really good burgers there. I'm trying to think if there's other places that...
You gave a few. That's
going,
good.
yeah.
You know, I am always curious, recommendations for food or places. I know it's kind of hard.
If you're going down south and you want a good place to swim, Bernstein's Pond, which is over by Mona.
Okay.
It's like kind of...
An old swimming hole or something.
Yeah, and it's this nice little...
I bet you Payson was just full of swimming holes, right? Like
Payson didn't have a ton of swimming holes. We had Arnie B's, and then I lived on West Mountain, so we'd ride in the creek. I just said crick.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Creek. It still sounds so weird to me. It's crick to me. But yeah, we'd have like the old irrigation pond or the irrigation ditches, and we'd swim in those ponds. And I'm sure I've been exposed to more giardia than the normal human. And
you
so
have a really good
I don't
immune
get that.
system now.
I have a rockin' immune system.
Do you still have family down in Payson?
Yeah. So my dad still lives on West Mountain, has some cows out there, and I've got friends. We go milk cows every once in a while and go shooting and doing all sorts of things down there. I've got quite a Hicks side to me, which is Braxton Hicks.
Well, you know, we didn't really get a whole lot about you, but I've had a heck of a conversation talking about sex and you know, sex ed in Utah. I would definitely love to bring you back on down the road. I think we can have a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Bringing you in. How can people listening right now, how could they let's say they want to, hey, you know what? I got some sex problems. I'm a little weird. Mm-hmm. I think I'm weird. I mean, how can people find you? Let's run down the list of the podcast, how they can find your therapy.
Yeah, so we've got Birds and Bees podcast. The .com. By the time this is out, I hope that the website's up. But we got birdsandbeespodcast.com. And there you can see the different episodes we've got. I've also got facebook.com/Birds and Bees podcast. I'm on Twitter at Birds and Bees Pod. And you can, if you want me to come do some education presentations or anything along those lines to your company, or if you have questions specific about sex, you can always email me at braxton@thehealinggroup.com.
Can you imagine bringing them into your work, Chrissy, here? Today, guys, we're going to talk about sex.
Oh, I think it would be so awesome. We have a word at work when things go too far, because we do joke a lot about sex. Mm-hmm. And whenever it gets crosses the line into HR territory, someone yells Rumpelstiltskin. So it's like Rumpelstiltskin. So everybody has to stop. We do. We have a safe word. It's safe word at work. It's healthy.
Sorry, I kind of interrupted. You were giving an email address or something like that.
Yeah, Braxton@thehealinggroup.com.
And then thehealinggroup.com, the website.
You can go to thehealinggroup.com.
And then...
see my profile there.
Is there a phone number up there too?
Yeah, so it's 801-305-3171. And you can call that and say, hey, I want to talk to Braxton, or I want to set up a session with him. And we can
Is this something that insurance will cover at all?
Yeah, so I'm in the middle of, because I just got my license as of maybe a month ago. Blue Cross Blue Shield and EMI are looking to panel me. So I will have
We're covered, baby.
All right. Well, let's go talk about sex with Braxton.
So yeah, I take some insurances and I do take self-pay. And
sure.
Again, some of the stuff can be just as simple as exploring the permission. Like, is this okay? It can be
safe words,
things like that.
It honestly sounds like something that every couple should do.
And I think that it's
even just to get familiar with how they communicate about it.
Yeah, a lot of times we just don't know how to communicate together. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of expectations about what sex should look like, feel, how we should respond. And I would love to meet with any couples that are getting ready to get married, especially LDS couples that have not had sex, that are so excited about this, to set up expectations and to have those conversations. And really
so you don't get married and then sit in the room and go, what do we do?
Or to feel, because you've got values behind it where you've saved yourself for, like me, I was a virgin when I was married, and all of a sudden it was so weird to be like, oh, I'm a virgin, now I'm married and did everything I needed to, and now I'm not.
And all of a sudden it's weird. Okay.
And all of a sudden it's okay. Yeah. And you're like, okay, Oh, well, wow, that's kind of weird because now I'm not, and that's a big part of who my identity was, and how you can deal with some of that because it's a big change. And do you want to have sex on your wedding night? Is it okay for you guys just to start into something different instead of being like, well, time for penetrative sex? Like I love this. This is why I do sex therapy, because I just love the conversation about all of it. I love all of it.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all those links at iamsaltlake.com with this episode's show notes.
Perfect.
So reach out to Braxton, let him know you heard him on the podcast. Say, I want to talk to you. My wife's nuts. Anything else you want to ask him, Chrissy, while we have him?
Oh, not without just going into a wormhole.
Yeah, we can go down another wormhole.
There's so many.
But I'll definitely, we'll definitely have you back on.
Yeah,
so.
have me back as much as you want. I love it.
All right. Thank you so much, Braxton.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Many thanks again to Braxton Dutson for coming on the podcast and sharing his story. The links to get in touch with him and all that good stuff can be found at iamsaltlake.com/295. It's for episode 295. I don't know about you, Chrissy. I don't feel our sex life is bad, but I kind of want to go check it out and see if we can, work on things a little bit.
You can never work too much on your sex life, right?
Absolutely.
I really go follow his podcast.
I want to check it out and check out his podcast, Birds and Bees. Really great show. Hey, but we got a few new Patreon supporters that I want to give a quick shout out to. Tell them thank you. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart. It's really cool. We got some great people out there in Salt Lake City that are great support of the podcast. So many thanks goes out to Will Dugdale, Brandy Burnham, Alex Santee, Brandon Hill, and Zach Shutt.
You guys are badass.
Oh, I mean, I'm serious. If you want to find out more about our Patreon, head on over to patreon.com/IamSaltLake, and you can find out more about that as well. Hey, but you've heard me mention them. You've heard me praise them. Jed's Barbershop is a proud sponsor of this podcast. With 3 locations now, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go grab yourself a haircut, a beard trim, or even my favorite, a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, 9 to 7, and even Sundays, 12 to 5. Their newest location, it's open at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. They also have a location right downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and up in Sugar House, 2153 East, 2100 South. No appointments necessary. Just show up and grab yourself a haircut. However, I do think, nice. I for like you, Chrissy, with if you need a haircut for like your son needed a haircut for back to school.
Oh, heck yeah.
Take him up to Jed's.
Yep. Because who has time, especially when you're super busy like we are, to really plan out haircuts for everybody in the family?
Appointments, right? Who has time for an appointment?
Not me. It's been so great.
JedsBarbershop.com is where you can find out more information about that. Hey, that's going to do it for this episode. We're here every week, so don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet. Get out and enjoy the city this upcoming week. Make friends with your neighbors. Eat local. Hug your kiddos. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Good night, Grammy.